What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back on a Sunday, laid back Sunday. But we didn't talk about Thiago Motta's presser, and he had quite a few things to say, very interesting things. I know some people out there are making it seem it was a very dull presser, not really special. It's a first presser. He was never going to talk about real tactics, but he dropped some hints. He dropped some interesting hints. And obviously, if you don't really care about football and you care about, again, I'll repeat myself, horses, talks about circus, talks about, anything that has absolutely nothing to do with football, then yes, this was a boring presser. But if you are interested in actual football, then it was a very interesting presser. And he said some things that he needed to say, and then he dropped some, not bombs, but he dropped some little hints here and there that I want to pick up and discuss. But before we get into it, as always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also stay tuned for tonight's live call-in show. But let's go. Let's talk about what Thiago Motta had to say. Okay, again, it's the first presser, so he was never going to talk about I'm going to play a 4-3-1-2, a 4-4-2, this and that. That was never going to happen. But he was saying some very interesting stuff, He opened up, or he didn't really open up, but he said that the past remains there to be looked at, but no longer thought about. We must show that we can compete at any level. We do not want excuses. We are ready to face every situation with positivity. He went on saying that I won at the end of the day. If the game is over, the referee blows the final whistle, the fans go home, we won, obviously he said, but also that the fans had a good time, that they had fun watching it, that they are behind the team, that they believe in what they're doing, that other teams are kind of scared to face Juve. In the past, and not so long past, we won 9 in a row. Teams were scared to face us because they knew what was going to happen. Even when we had a shitty off day and we played a very poor game, whatever, somehow, some way, we always find a way to win a lot of these games and win the title at the end of the season. That's what we did. People, when I talk about people, you can look up De Rossi's interview, for example, that just came up. He said that it was jarring to go to the stadium or even host Juve. It was not fun because he said we knew that no matter how confident we were, and even in the game at halftime, he said we were up or whatever, or we were on top, playing wise. After those 90 minutes, you just sat back and you're like, what just happened? How did this happen again? And then the next time you face them, you're like, you probably know what's going to happen. That is the scare factor. That is also important, but that you will only get if you get to winning ways. That's the only way you will kind of demand respect from your opponents, which we had in the past, and now it's absolutely gone. No team, the last couple of seasons, no team is scared to face us. We got bopped off the park by Empoli, Verona, like all these teams. They played us, and they had absolutely no fear because they knew if we give it a good go, we can win. That's what they thought. And they gave it a good go because they also know that if we give it a good go, they're probably not going to react. They're not that team. And we were definitely not that team. We never reacted. Our reaction was scared. It was frustrated. It was sloppy. There was no real guidelines behind it. And no team feared us. If like last season, at the end of the season, the games we were losing, if you just sat back and even if you liked Allegri and you kept hold of the idea that he's the right man, Empoli didn't respect us. These teams didn't respect us. They were not scared of us. And when that happens, you're done. Something needs to change. So that needs to come back, but that will take time. What also needs to come back and what's missing for a while is what he's saying, be positive. Fans going to the stadium, be positive. You win, but you leave with a good feeling. How many times in the last couple of seasons did we win a game and me personally came on and I was like, it's not enough. Yeah, we won the game and you'll take it, but it's not good enough to build on because you knew what was going to happen at one point, and so many times it actually did happen. That is, I think, what he's talking about. You need to have wins, but you need to win in one way because it needs to be sustainable, and that was definitely not the case the last couple of seasons. Okay. He said, I want a Juve that is proud, like I said, and happy after every match alongside our fans. I arrived at the right time as a very interesting chapter is beginning, and I'm happy to be here and be part of it. The chapter is rebuilding the squad, and we thought it was going to be with a lot of youngsters, which he talked about as well. But it's rebuilding the squad in a different way right now. It's new. He is clearly in charge with Giuntoli to set up the next couple of seasons. They're making their own decisions, tough decisions fans absolutely dislike, probably like a Chiesa. Decisions fans do like, They are making, for some, weird choices on the transfer market. For others, very normal decisions on the transfer market, But the key thing right here for me is, again, that it is a new chapter, and the chapter is what Elkan basically set out. Giuntoli, you're in charge. He picked Motta, and now Giuntoli and Motta are in charge to set out the next 3 years, like he said, where we need to be back at the top consistently, like he said. Like he said, we need to go back, even in Europe, and we need to compete. That's the goal. That's the standard for the club. We need to compete with the best one. I don't want us to compete with Empoli and all those teams. You brush those teams aside. That's what you do. You don't compete. We were competing with those teams on the pitch. Within 90 minutes, we were literally competing with those teams on a weekly basis, which was not okay. You can have off games here and there where it's tough to beat these teams. I get it. It's a long season. Even when we were winning 9, we struggled against some Capri, for example. We struggled against these teams. But somehow, some way, at the end of the day, we find ways to win because we were just better. And at the end of the ride, we won the league. That is the goal. That is the goal. Not just Champions League, Inter, whatever. Just brush other teams aside. Don't make it look tough. Don't make it look like you're playing Real Madrid away at the Bernabeu when you're actually playing Empoli at home and you're struggling. That's what he's talking about. But that's the kind of basic stuff. Then he obviously needed to say this. He said, I feel the great responsibility I have, but it's a wonderful responsibility. I wouldn't trade this place for anything. I want to convey enthusiasm and motivation so we can compete with anyone. Pressure doesn't scare me. It's an additional motivation. Last season with Allegri, I don't think Allegri was scared of pressure, because what he has won and how long he has been there, I don't think pressure scares him. However, pressure got to him because the way he reacted at the end of the season, the way he dashed out at certain journalists at times, the way he acted on the sideline, you can see that pressure got to him in terms of he knew he was not doing a good job. He knew that, and some might deny that. He knew he was doing a poor job. No matter what the squad was built like, he knew this ain't it. What I'm serving up right in here is kind of hot garbage. That's what I believe. That's what he thought, and I'm convinced he actually believed that, like me, he knew this is bad. That's why he was frustrated, because he couldn't change really anything throughout the season. So pressure, it should be a motivation, but last season it didn't feel like a motivation. It felt like an extra chore, and that chore was too big for anyone to actually pick up and finish. That's what it was, and that's how that season also ended. Like, it was work. I said it many times. I felt like these players were having a 9 to 5, and they were like, oh my God, need to go back to work. And the moment they checked out, they were like, oh, thank God. No matter what actually happened at work, they were like, just good, I'm home, and that's how we looked. That's how we played. And that, again, cannot be the case this season. There needs to be some sort of positive vibe. Otherwise, you're going absolutely nowhere. You're just not going nowhere again. Now comes the interesting stuff. The stuff that, I think a lot of people kind of brushed aside. We're like, oh, it's a boring presser. But he said a couple of interesting stuff. He said, Vlahovic is a great player, but talent needs the team and team spirit. When this works, talent emerges on their own. That's what I said so many times. And it's not just Vlahovic. Miretti, for example. You can only judge these players if the team is set up in a proper way. Unless you're generational, you will not stand out. Miretti, like, these players are not generational. Even Yildiz is not generational. They will not stand out as they potentially should, because they're good players, if the setup is all over the place. If the team doesn't believe what they're doing, if it lacks cohesion, these players will look like donkeys at times. They will, Like I said, only potential world-class players or generational players like Yamal, like, you can put him in an absolute rubbish Barcelona side, he will do his thing because he's that good. These type of players, we don't have those type of players. We don't have these type of players. So we will not have a player just stand out like that in a very crap team. It's just not going to happen. Vlahovic definitely is a player who needs a team to function. He needs a team to function. Otherwise, he will struggle. I have no problem with saying that. I want Vlahovic to be in and around the box. Linking up play, good. But not linking up play like he was doing at times with us in our own half. He is not fantastic at that. Even at Fiorentina, he did that. He did that well, but it wasn't as consistent as he was doing now. So if you look up highlights at Fiorentina, there are more highlights of good things and bad things, but also there are probably double amounts of attempts, of holding up play in our own half. Because that was what we were demanding, or what Allegri was demanding from him last season. And he's not that type of player. He will never be that type of player. Not to that extent. He should be doing, if you ask him to hold up play 5 times a game, real hold up play, and just being on your own and linking up play midfield or on our own half, he will be perfectly fine. If you keep asking that week in, week out to do that 10 times and at moments just 90 minutes trying to hold up play, it's pointless. It really is pointless. Then you move him on, sell him, and you get somebody and you can actually do that job. That's just what it is. So it is going to be interesting how he's going to use him. Is he going to demand to just stick up front? Is he going to demand to run into spaces? Is he going to demand to actually sit back at times, or like just drop in so much, that somebody else who plays behind him, is it Yildiz? Is it Koolmeijers? I don't know, can, fill his position, because with Motta, it's a lot of changes. It's a lot of movements. It is going to be interesting because he had Arnautovic, who was kind of a gunman, like a number 9. Actually, technically not that bad as well. But it's going to be interesting how he's going to use him, because this is not Zirkzee. It's going to look different. So let's see how that will go as well. Okay. He said, and this was the best part of the show. He has one more quote I want to talk about after this one, which was also interesting and was actually funny because I've been saying it for a while. But this one was good. He said, for me, midfielders must defend, attack, be able to play, counter, score goals. We only have strong players here. The ones we have and will have at the end of the market will be midfielders who can do everything. That was interesting. He said, all the players we have here are modern. All the players we have are strong. And I'm not saying that because I'm here, but because I think so. There are a few, like I said, out and out generational players in a specific role. We have some who are very versatile, basically. That's what I've been saying. We don't have that in the team. And he talks about versatile players. He wants his players to do more than just stick to one position. That's why I think Chiesa is in trouble right now. And even Vlahovic, you might say. But I think he can work around that more so than a player like Chiesa, in my opinion. How he thinks, how he sees certain things. But the midfielder one was interesting because he said Douglas Luiz is a fantastic player. I'm so happy to have him here. He will slot in without any problems. But at times he will need to attack. But at times in certain games he will need to defend. I want to see that because I don't think he's very good at that. But, you need to make it work because you wanted Douglas Luiz. But how he spoke about the players he has are versatile. That's what is key for him. Having versatile players. McKennie, for example, people think he's versatile. He's not versatile, because he plays as a number 8 at times or on the wing. When I talk about versatile, you need to be good, very good in certain positions. And I don't know if Fagioli is that or Miretti is that. I don't know. I will give them a shot. But with McKennie, I think he's good at very good at one thing, running into open space. That's where he's very good at. He really is. And I said it many times, But on the ball, it's very basic. He's not quick. Technically, he's very limited, So that's a player, for me, who's not versatile. Even a player like Danilo is not versatile. He needs to play center back. If you stick him on the left, he's going to get cooked. So he's not versatile, in my opinion. These players are not versatile. And that's what he said so many times. He hates, quote unquote, players that need to play one role and they're like, I need to do this and that's it. And especially players in the middle of the pack. He kind of dislikes that. Now with Douglas Luiz, defensively, I need to see it. I really need to see it. I haven't seen it, to be honest. So that's going to be interesting. But in general, he needs players who are versatile. That was kind of the basis of his presser, and even at Bologna, just in general, how he plays. Versatile players who can do multiple jobs. That's like he said, there are a few players who are just unbelievable in one role, and you're like, yeah, just hold my hands up and you do play that role. You don't need to do anything else. That's what he's trying to say. If you're not that type of guy, you're going to need to chip in on all fronts. That was basically the point he was trying to make. So it's going to be interesting for certain players how they are going to cope with that, to be honest. And then the final quote I thought was very ironic. It was about Adzik, but just in general, he said Adzik is very interesting. He's a very interesting player. I'm very happy. He's young, but I look little at age. He has a lot of physical and especially mental strength. He can become a very important player. That part where he said age doesn't really matter. It's just basically, are you good enough? Then you're good enough. And at times last season, I thought it was more so about age. It's like, I need to play that kid. Oh, he's a kid. If you're good enough, you will play and you will beat out the others. And that goes for any player I like or dislike. If you're good enough and you're better than somebody else and you're showing it on the pitch, he deserves to play. That was not the case last season. Kostic was not better than Junior. I'm not saying that Junior's world class or whatever, but he wasn't better than Junior and he kept playing him. That was the frustrating part. I don't think we're going to see that with Koopmeiners, with Motta. He might have a favorite, but if somebody else is better, he will play that better player. That was not the case last season. Allegri stick with players he liked, he trusted, quote unquote, and no matter what they did or didn't do in a game, next week they will be playing again. That was so frustrating, so unfair, and actually for other players waiting for their chance, it's just a mental, blow. And when they get the opportunity, it's like a lot of pressure. I need to show it right now because if I don't, I will be sitting on the bench for weeks. And that was kind of the case. And that is not fair. Who's good enough, plays. And that goes for me. If somebody I don't like is better than the other one and he's showing it, then you play. You play. If we sign Todibo and Bremer, but Danilo shows that he's better than Todibo and more reliable, then you play Danilo because I want to win. And you kind of, lick your wounds with Todibo, basically. That's what I was trying to say. And that was definitely not the case last season. It was just favorites who were getting played no matter what. And that's a no-go. That's a no-go. But yeah, that was his presser. It's interesting. It's going to be more interesting after preseason games where we get to talk about players, movements, tactics, and other stuff. So stay tuned for that because that's coming next week as well. So can't wait for that. But that's it for me, people. If you haven't liked the video, like it right now, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Ciao.